Welcome back. We are picking up with unit conversion examples in this Chapter 1 Part B lecture series. So, number 15, we have a bottle containing insulin at a concentration of 50 milligrams per milliliter. What is the volume in a 0.175 gram dose? So remember, our first step is to determine what's our given, what's our target, what are our conversion factors, right? Okay, so the target tends to be the easiest to find, which is what they're asking for. And they are asking, what is the volume in milliliters? Okay, so I know at the end of all this, I need to get to milliliters. Okay, and then I've got to find my given information, and they give me two values. One of those must be a conversion factor, and the other is given information. And remember that the given information should not be part of an equality, and it should not have a slash in those units, such as miles per hour. And so if you notice, the 50 milligrams per milliliter has that slash in the units. So this must be a conversion factor. Okay, which means the only information left is that 0.175 grams, and therefore that has to be my given information. Okay, so I'm going to start out with that 0.175 grams. I have a conversion factor. I'm going to write that off to the side here just so that I have it. And that is 50.0 milligrams. And then when that slash pops up, I'm going to put an equal sign, and then I'm going to write a 1 in front of the milliliters. That 1 is assumed. Okay, so I've got 50 milligrams in 1 milliliter. Now the issue is that neither one of the units in my conversion factor match my given units of grams. So I know that I'm going to have to convert from grams to something else before I can use that conversion factor. Now that conversion factor does have the milliliters, which are my target units, so that's great. Which means that I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this conversion factor in that second step. Okay, now how am I going to get, if I know the target is milliliters, how am I going to get from grams to milligrams so that I can use this conversion factor? Okay, so that's kind of the question I'm asking here. Is I know how to go between milligrams and milliliters. I know that step with this conversion factor, but I don't have a conversion factor between grams and milligrams. And again, that's one of the ones that you had to memorize. So remember that 1 milligram is equal to 0.001 grams. Okay, so I have my two equalities. I have kind of a roadmap set up, and so I'm going to do that first step and convert from grams to milligrams. Okay, I have 0.175 grams. Multiply it by a conversion factor, and remember I want to put my given units on the bottom. So if I'm starting with grams, then in this equality I want to take the 0.001 grams and put that on the bottom. And then the top part of my equality is going to be the target units of milligrams for my first step. Okay, so I kind of have two targets going on here. I have the milligrams as my first target, and then it's going to become my given information, and my new target will become the milliliters. So in this step, the grams cancel. Okay, and I am left with 175 milligrams. Now, the next step, I need to convert those milligrams and figure out how many milliliters that is, using that conversion factor that was given in the question. Okay, so again, I start back up with that 175 milligrams, multiply by a conversion factor, and then I need my given units on the bottom. That's what I'm starting with. So milligrams has to go on the bottom. That means that 50.0 milligrams from my equality, and then the 1 milliliter here goes on top. Okay, so in my calculator, I'm going to multiply 175 times 1 and then divide by 50. And if I do that, I should get back in my calculator 3.5. Now, we got to stop and think about sig figs. So, there are 3 sig figs in my given information. Okay, and we also started out with 3 sig figs at the beginning. And then we're going to ignore those conversion factors, which means I need 3 sig figs in my final answer. Okay, I currently have 2, so if I want to make it 3, I've got to add on that 0 without changing the magnitude. So it becomes 3.50, and then the milligrams have canceled, and the only units that I'm left with are the milliliters that I want. Okay, so final answer of 3.50 milliliters. Okay, let's try another one. Number 16. If a capsule contains 250 micrograms, how many capsules are needed for a 2.2 milligram dose? So the first thing I want to note is that 250 micrograms will often look like a micro symbol. Okay, so there are 2 ways of seeing that. And we're going to stick with that micro symbol because if you look at your conversion factors, you'll see that micro symbol right there. Okay, now we've got to determine what is our target. That's the easiest thing. And they're asking how many capsules. Okay, so I know at the end of all this, I have got to find capsules. I'm going to abbreviate that as a cap. Now, what's my given information? Well, we've got 2 numbers given to us, and both of them look like single units. We've got micrograms, or we've got the 2.2 milligrams. But the problem is that 250 micrograms is in a phrase. It says a capsule contains 250 micrograms. Okay, so that phrase can be turned into an equality. A capsule would be 1 capsule. And I'm going to write that above it or off to the side here. How about that? So we've got 1 capsule is equal to or contains 250 micrograms. Okay, so that's an equality. That must be a conversion factor. Which means that the 2.2 milligrams must be our given information. So we're going to start with 2.2 milligrams and somehow get to the number of capsules. Okay, and I know that this equality here has a capsule in it, which means that I'm probably going to use it here in this step. 1 capsule equals 250 micrograms. So, if I'm getting to a capsule, the only other units in that equality are a microgram. So the step before that must be a microgram. Okay, now I have to somehow get from milligrams to micrograms. And the only conversion factor that I know with a milligram that I have memorized is that 1 milligram is equal to 1,000 grams. That's from that milli prefix. Okay, so 1 milligram equals 1,000 grams will go in this step here. Okay, so that's going to get me from milligrams to grams, but that still doesn't get me to the microgram. So I'm going to need another conversion factor that gets me from the gram to the microgram. And if I go to my conversion factor sheet, I can see that 1 micro is equal to 1 times 10 to the negative 6th of the base, which is a gram. So 1 microgram equals 1 times 10 to the negative 6th grams. Okay, so this is what we would call a 3-step unit conversion. So this time I'm going to line it all up in one fluid motion. I'm going to start out with that 2.2 milligrams, and you could do this one step at a time. That would be okay too. And my first conversion factor is 1 milligram equals 1,000 grams. So if my given units are the milligram, I need my 1 milligram from my equality here to go on the bottom of the fraction. And in 1 milligram, there are 1,000 grams. Okay, so that gets the milligrams to cancel, and I'm left with the grams. Now in the second step, I'm going from grams to micrograms. So again, I need the grams in that equality, in that conversion factor, to go on the bottom. So 1 times 10 to the -6 grams, and then on top in that equality, I've got the 1 microgram. Okay, so grams cancel. Now I'm left with the microgram. And then the last step is to go from the microgram to the capsules. And here in my equality, remember, if micrograms are what I'm starting with, I need to put the micrograms on the bottom of my conversion factor. And so from that equality, I'm going to take the 250 micrograms, and then the 1 capsule from the equality is going to go on top. Okay, micrograms cancel, and then I am left with the capsules that I want. In my calculator, if I try to do this all at once, remember that I've got to take 2.2 times 1,000, and it's best to keep that all in parentheses, and then divide by, open a new set of parentheses, and then 1, and then that double E key, -6 times 250, and then in parentheses. Okay, so with all that, I should get back 8.8 capsules. And I am using 2 sig figs because that 2.2 number that we started out with, that's 2 sig figs. Okay, so rounding this, you should get 8.8 as 2 sig figs. Okay, so we are going to stop here, and then the next video we will pick up with density.